Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Karen Rice and I'm going to be demonstrating a really simple flower painting, one that everyone can have a go at, whether you're a beginner or you've been painting for a while in watercolour. So I welcome any questions. You can put them in the comments section below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. So let's get on with it. So as you can see, here are all my materials. I've got some brushes, my palette and my paints. All of these materials will be listed in the description below, but here are the colours I'm using. Sorry I haven't turned that yellow around, but it's Permanent Yellow by ROWNEY. This is the beautiful photograph I'm using and I've got it from pexels.com, and I'll put a link for this in the description below if you want to have a go as well. It's a fantastic little photograph of a beautiful pink flower and something that really kind of inspires me because it's simple, but you can really express yourself creatively here and just have a bit of fun with it, especially using colours like Opera Rose and Permanent Magenta. As you can see, I'm just using an HB pencil here and I'm just sketching out the outline of the flower. Sometimes I'll get a bit too busy with this and I'll use a rubber afterwards to rub out some of the excess lines, and I'd sort of give that as a bit of advice as well, because when you're sketching sometimes you can get a bit carried away, and if so with watercolour, just rub out some of those lines because it's very difficult when you start painting to get rid of those lines. So just rub out what you know, so you just leave a little ghost lines before you start painting. So I'm just starting off now with the Opera Rose and Magenta for this fabulous colour of this little flower, and just mixing up a nice watery consistency, and I'm painting wet on dry. What I tend to do is I get a bit of paint, put it on the paper and then put some water and just push it through. I'm using a Winsor & Newton pointed sable and it's a size 3, and it's a lovely brush because it's quite long but you get lots of paint on it and it gives you that lovely detail. It's almost like using a rigger. So I'm just continuing, dropping water, dropping bits of paint in. Don't be afraid in this instance to drop in wetter paint into drying paint because you get some lovely backgrounds which creates that lovely fragility of flowers. So I'm just mixing up some greens now using the Daniel Smith green with some Permanent ROWNEY yellow. Now you can use other colours, it doesn't have to be these, you can use blue and yellow to make green, but if you're going to use this limey green, use cerulean with some yellow, you get some lovely light greens as well. I'm actually adding a little bit of pink to that green now for the stem, just to make it a little bit more neutral looking. You can see it creates a beautiful colour. It's like a lovely warm colour on the stem, as you can see in the photograph. It's very similar to that. So I'm painting that wet on dry, but then dropping in bits of paint as I go. So I'm mixing up this limey green colour now, and just like a creamy consistency I'm going to start painting some of the leaves. I'm just going to keep them nice and simple. I'm using my small sable brush. I'm just pressing the point down and then lifting my elbow and hand up to get that lovely point at the end, and just dropping in some stronger colour. And I'm dropping in some warmer green, so I've actually added a little bit of pink to that limey green, and I'm painting that in wet on dry. So just letting that flow through, and then using my apple twig, which I love to use, and pulling out that wet paint to create those tiny little stems that are coming out from that main stem. I just love drawing with this apple twig. It really liberates you and you just feel like you can just go for it, more so than when you are painting with a paintbrush. You can just dip it into the paint and just draw with it, and it's absolutely wonderful. So I really recommend it. So I'm just giving a little spatter now with my brush, just some of the colours I've just mixed up in my palette actually, nothing too fancy. And I'm just mixing up a darker purple now, that's using the magenta with some ultramarine, and I've dried my flower now and I'm going to paint petals now, wet on dry, the darker shades of the petal, working from the outside edge. So I'm putting on a bit of paint and then I'm just putting a little bit of water next to it, and as you can see I've used a very, very thin light edge there between the petals. That stops the paint running into the other petals, so you've got a little bit of control, which is really, really useful if you want to sort of carry on painting wet on dry without without having to keep using your hairdryer all the time. So I'm just adding a little bit of lovely green. It's the cerulean plus a touch of yellow there, so it's a yummy colour, and a lovely lime green at the bottom there, wet and wet, letting it flow through. And I'm just putting on this magenta colour again. Isn't it lovely the way that just all flows? What I try to do, and I hope what you notice, is I just try to let the watercolour just do its own thing. Let it flow. Let's just see what happens. It's always lovely the way it can surprise you sometimes, watercolour. I'm just painting the stem now of the flower, and I've just used that green colour and added some pink, and it makes a beautiful brown. So I'm going to make up a darkish green now. So I'm using some ultramarine and some permanent yellow. And as you can see, the colour's quite creamy. So I'm just going to put this on the leaves, just on the left-hand side, and just paint out. The leaf actually is slightly damp, but I'm not going to let that bother me. But if you're worried about bleeds and things like that, give it a quick blow dry and then just carry on. So just putting a little bit more dark on the edge of the leaf there. And I'm just going to continue putting darks on the stems, etc., on my flower and the leaves. So I'm about to mix up some more darks, and I'm mixing up ultramarine and permanent magenta in a lovely creamy wash. And I'm just painting some of the darks now on the petal. Now this is what a lot of my students say is the scariest bits. But to make the lights look light, you have to put dark on. So you have to be brave. So be brave. So as you can see, it sort of creates a nice sort of shape around those light coloured petals, and I'm bringing out the light petals. That's the important thing, with that lovely creamy magenta and ultramarine wash. As you can see, I put my darks on. Now I'm going to put some details on, so it's not as dark as that shadowy colour. I'm just putting some of the veins and some of the crinkles on those outside petals. So it's quite a diluted version of that dark colour, the ultramarine and the magenta. So just putting in some soft shadows and also some details at the base of the flower. And as you can see, I've painted most of this now with this pointed 3 sable, Winsor & Newton sable brush. If you make a mistake, which is what I've done there, just put in some water, scrub it about a bit, and then dab it off with some tissue, and you'll get your light back. So I'm just putting in some more details here, just to give it, I felt that it was a little bit unbalanced there. So from the original photograph, you can see it hasn't got the twiggy bits this side, so I've decided to put it there, and I think it gives a good balance. It just, because it was just sort of a bit one-sided, so I'm just repeating what I've seen from the other side. So when you have a photograph, don't be afraid to make your own changes to make the painting look good and to make the painting work. As you can see, I'm using a spatter just to finish off the painting. I think I'm going to leave the painting there for now. Just to say, I'm using Saunders Waterford Hot Press. It's a smooth paper and great for painting flowers or any other detailed work. I hope you enjoyed that video. I really enjoyed painting it. I was kind of sort of copying the photograph, and then I went a little bit off-piste. And I think that's all to do with creativity. I'm someone who doesn't like to slavishly copy a photograph. I like to interpret it and use it as a reference. So I feel that I used it in this instance here. I love the colours that I use. Those colours are gorgeous. They really do come to life. The spattering at the end is a real personal choice. It's not for everyone, so do it, don't do it. Enjoy it though, that's the most important thing. Have a go, you never know what it might bring out in you, you know, creativity wise. So just go for it and enjoy it. If you'd like to see any other videos like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll get updates of my latest videos. Thank you again for watching. Happy painting and bye for now.